Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the Radults podcast, the podcast that highlights the stories of people who said fuck that to the idea that growing up means giving up on your dreams, and instead turn those dreams into their reality. Today's guest is Melbourne-based art director and graphic artist Pat Fox, who has created some of the most memorable Australian music-related artwork of the last decade. Pat has worked alongside some of Australia's biggest and best musical exports, including the likes of Tash Sultana, Vance Joy, the Amity Affliction, Northlane, Hellions, and In Hearts Wake. It has also seen his art appear on the grand stages of Soundwave, Unify, Harvest, the Vans Warped Tour, and the Hills Are Alive festivals.
I'm going to just kick it off and
Shoot.
tell our listeners who you are and what do you do.
I don't even know who I am. I always get weird with that question. I'm Pat Fox. I'm an art director. I have a frog in my throat. I'm an art director in the music industry, basically. So I predominantly do album artwork. Kind of like these days, I work pretty closely with artists, I guess. Like, so I have a few people that I work with, almost on a day-to-day basis, and just sort of work with them on all their creative outputs. So it'll extend from album artwork into like right through to anything visual that you see come out of them. So whether that be like marketing, tour artwork, merch. Like recently started moving into live shows, which is really cool, and
Yeah, well, we saw your work at...
Sorry, I don't really have the elevator pitch sell of that. I'm just
Well, I mean, we saw your work at Unify. You did the Hellions set.
I did, yeah.
And that was awesome to see.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
So...
Yeah, that was really fun, that one. I was really stoked on that.
And that leads us to a pretty organic way to ask you a question we ask of everybody that comes on the podcast.
Shoot.
And that is... How did you go from being little child Pat Fox to being Pat Fox, art director for heaps of amazing bands?
Oh, there are some that would argue that I'm still somewhat childlike. I don't know. It flowed pretty organically, funnily enough. So my background prior to that was, when I was younger, I used to play in bands. And so I used to play in a couple of bands called, one was called No Exit, another one was called Goodnight Combat Fighter. And I was always interested in art. And did that in school, and so when I was doing the bands, I started doing flyers and doing a little bit of merch, and then that just friends started asking me to do their stuff, and I was when I was playing music, my job was driving a truck. I used to drive deliveries for a surf shop called Osmosis, and I did that for like 3 years or something, and I was obviously getting a little bit over it. It's like, all right, I should come up with a backup plan, and all this stuff just kind of organically fed out of that. Like a friend of mine, an old bandmate, Joe, he gave me a bunch of CDs that all happened to be... all the artwork was done by a studio called Invisible Creature, and he's like, hey, you should do this, and showed me like Norma Jean, Oh God, The Aftermath. Like, do you remember that artwork?
Such an amazing artwork.
Well, they're one of my all-time favorite bands regardless, but yeah, the art in that is intense, like super surreal, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do that. So off I went to TAFE, and here we are. Like, pretty much just went to TAFE with the sole purpose of wanting to learn the craft, and knowing that I wanted to work for myself, and knowing that I wanted to work for music and do stuff with my friends. And at the time, initially, I wanted to start a clothing label. I am very happy I didn't. But yeah, that was kind of how that all started, I guess. So.
What did your parents think when you turned around and you were like, look, you know what? I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a vet.
I don't think they ever expected that of me.
But what were their
Numbers
reaction
are not
when
my
you're
strong
like,
suit.
I'm going to use lines and colours to create things for a living? What did they say?
Do it. Go for it. They were great. My whole family is very supportive, and they're very creative to begin with, on both sides of the family. But they didn't. I think they were stoked that I was going back to school. And I was always very artistic. I've always been drawing for as long as I can remember. I loved drawing in school. I loved art in school. I just kind of had it beaten out of me by a couple of bad teachers, or like a bad teacher in VCE, and I think they were happy that I was coming back to it, and it was something that I knew they would see me working on things, and I'd go into my room and I'd just stay there for hours, and then I'd come out and I'd just be like, oh, I made this thing, I made a poster, or I did this, I'm trying this illustration, or like a lot of the stuff that I was doing, because I've always loved Photoshop. I've always loved playing around with it. It's kind of, I think the thing I love about Photoshop is it's just sort of, you just make it up as you go. Like, you kind of get everything that you want on the page, and then you just start destroying it or adding to it and taking away. And it's very freeform. So I just started doing all that stuff, and they're like, oh, well, he's got this thing. He's found an avenue that kind of calms him down a little bit and he's passionate about it. So when I said that I was going back to school and I wanted to study design, they were like, absolutely, go for it.
And I mean, Billy Madison had already made it cool to go back to school.
He did, yeah.
So
yeah.
you already had that going for you.
I just wanted a swan, man. I just wanted a swan. I wanted to just stop looking at me.
You got stuck with the penguin instead.
Yeah. Instead, I'm getting hosed down by Chris Farley in the middle of a mansion. Get away from me! I don't even know you. There we go. That's obscure movie reference number 1 for the podcast.
That's the first of what I hope will be many impersonations that Pat's ripped off in this podcast.
I can't wait for him to start answering questions in different accents.
I know. Actually, that's a
I'm
request.
sure that can be arranged. Don't tempt me, man.
I'm tempting you right now. We're literally seeing James McAvoy in Split.
Oh God.
Also,
so you're forcing me into the Patricia corner straight away.
Immediately.
Make you a sandwich.
Now, you've mentioned that you come from...
Sit down, be quiet, and cut the crusts off this one.
That is so good.
You've mentioned you come from a creative family. Were you the first one to make the leap out of your siblings into using an artistic medium for a career, or did the others come first?
Oh, no, by default, I'm the eldest.
Yeah. So you're the test bunny.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Not an accident.
Yeah. I have joked about that my whole life because my family is Catholic, so we were raised Catholic. So yeah, exactly. So it'd be like, yeah, I know you love me now, but it was a surprise, wasn't it? I was like, no, we planned for you, Patrick. And then we had another forum. We're like, you know what? That's enough because we're done trying.
5 accidents is enough.
Yeah. Well, so it's me, a younger sister, and then I have 3 brothers, and I have another half brother as well. So it's quite a big family. And then very big. So my family's half American, half Australian. My mum's Australian. My dad, he grew up in Wilmette in Chicago, and he's the middle child of 8. And so there's 19 cousins on that side of the family, and then on my mum's side, it's me. Well, it's my mum and her brother John. And from memory, it's kind of hard to keep up. I think there's 12 on that, including me and my siblings on that side of the family. I could be wrong. Could be 13. Could be 14. I'm sure I'll get scolded for not remembering. But yeah, big family, lots of ADT, lots of there's lots of kind of creatives and stuff on my dad's side of the family. But yeah, I was the first one to kind of pursue it, I guess. So I play with my beard a lot, so tell me if I'm picking it up in the mic.
That's fine. Podcasting
I hope
is
that
not
we
a
have
visual
this.
medium.
No, it's not.
Your laugh is a legit seismic event, though. Every time.
I love it. It is amazing.
For those of you who don't know, the wave files you see every time that Pat laughs go absolutely mental.
Yeah. My life looks like Gojira.
Yes.
We literally have a Category 5 earthquake right now.
So you've touched on the fact that your brothers are all artists then, and then you're obviously their number one influence. But
I wouldn't say that. I would not say that.
But have you done any work with them?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. So I've always, pretty much since day dot, I've always very much enjoyed collaborating with people. It's I guess the best way to put it is my philosophy is just because I don't have the means to do something doesn't mean that should stop me from doing it. So, and that was something I initially learnt from, I guess, when I was at school and I was getting into art, and Invisible Creature had a blog, and they used to work. Before that, they were called Asterisk Studio, and they had an in-house photographer. And I remember seeing blog posts, and they'd be like, "Oh, we wanted a church, but we couldn't get one, so we just built the set in our studio." So, seeing stuff just seeing that, if you can't find it, just make it, and that, just sort of that work ethic, it rubbed off on me in a big way initially, right from the get-go. So when I started working for myself, if there was something that I wanted to do but I didn't know how to do it, or I didn't have the ability to do it, then I would find people who could fill those gaps, and it would always be a collaborative experience. Like just because I feel like that enriches the concept so much more. Like it's good to just, you know, have like one idea, one person in there, you know, like that's what an art director is. That's the person driving the ship. But yeah, it's always much more fun if you can get other people involved. So in terms of family, like, so my youngest brother Sean. So I'm close with my whole family, but my brothers Dan and Sean, the three of us are thick as thieves, and we're all kind of the same. Like, we're all huge film nerds, like quite, you know, like artistic, love cartoons and video games and all the shit. It's just like we're connected at the hip. So Sean Sean has helped me out. He's been like assisted me on a number of shoots over the years. I can't remember where it started, but I can tell you that he was a lifesaver when we were doing the This Could Be Heartbreak artwork for Amity, because he was basically my right hand man. Like, there was so much to organize for that, so I was, you know, bringing him in as like, all right, I've got to focus on this part of the list today. Can you fill in this and help me get this? You know, we got to get this many people together. We got to get this for the location. We got to get food. We got to There's like a million and one things. So that he was a lifesaver on that. And then he was studying film at the time, and so where did he do it? I think he was a deacon. Yeah. So I think like as the further he got into his studies and the more he was starting to like work on shoots and do his own thing, it was kind of like, well, you know, if you want more experience, come hang out with me. And so we'd start doing that together. He started doing photography, and now like whenever I do a shoot, we're doing it together. So like he helped out on House vs Hurricane Filth. We actually shot Trophy Eyes together. So that was the two of us, like just in the garage, which is funny. But we recently did, I don't think I can name it yet, but we did another shoot recently down at Areas Inlet, which was super fun. And I think that album's getting announced very soon. So it's kind of poor timing that I can't talk about that in detail, but that was a really, really fun shoot. But Sean's a legend, and any chance I get to work with him, I can. And then same thing with my brother Dan. Like, we haven't really had too many opportunities to work together, but he's my sounding board, and he's also like, you know how everyone has a couple of people who they go to for feedback or whatever, and it's not good until they say it's good. Yeah. So Dan's always been one of those people for me. So like, I'll work on something, I'll show him, and if he's like, yeah, this is really cool, then I know it's not shit.
The way you've been able to collaborate with Sean is really awesome from the point of view that together you have all of these memories of these projects you've worked on, and they've become a piece of art that's been seen by, well, in the case of Amity, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, when you think about the scope of that band's fan base. And that's a memory you can share together, and no matter whenever someone listens to that record on Spotify or they look at the vinyl they've got at home, that's them unknowingly looking at the result of a collaboration between two brothers. Must be a really cool feeling. Yeah,
it's awesome. Like, so like we kind of, so the Trophy Eyes record was Sean's first photography credit.
That's amazing.
Credit
it looks
on
really
a record.
Cool too.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I think I really like that album art. It was a really smooth process. That one that came together really quickly, and it just kind of flowed, which is really good. But that was Sean's first photography credit on a record. So we've got, because I did most of the origami in the record. Anything that was too hard, I had to get made in the US and shipped over by this origami artist named Vincent Lee. And so he did the eagle on the cover. I tried for like a week and a half to do it and could not fucking get it over the line. That thing was impossible. Like, I managed to make something that kind of looked like a Gundam that had been beaten up for its lunch money. There was something that kind of looked like a ninja star, but none of them looked like eagles. So I got him to do the eagle for the cover, and then in the booklet there's like a condor or a vulture as well. So he did those. And so we've both got a piece of the origami from the art, and then we have a dollar bill that And what we did was we wrote a punchline and then the start of the joke, like just so we have it for each other. And I think from memory, I think he wrote on mine, "Give me the antidote," and I can't remember what I wrote back. But so we've got like, it's getting framed in the moment. So it's like the album cover, then a piece of the origami, and then the bill that we both sign. So that's like our little thing, which is really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I ramble. So
no, it's good.
Like,
It's
if I'm talking
podcasting.
too much at any point, like just go, all right, let's go to the next thing.
It's a podcast. You have to ramble.
Yeah, true. Very true.
So, I mean, you've got Joe Rogan that has like 4-hour episodes, so he
Yeah.
definitely likes to talk.
Yeah, he certainly does.
You're working on a project with your brothers at the moment, aren't you, though?
I am, yeah. So we're working on a short film together at the moment, which is really, really fucking exciting. So, the whole story with that is my brother Dan. He's disabled, so he has a bone disorder called McCune-Albright syndrome, which is kind of like brittle bone syndrome, but with a whole bunch of extra caveats. So he's got scoliosis. He breaks bones really easily. Like if he coughs in his sleep, he gets a broken rib and that sort of thing. And Dan's he studied film, but he's now an animator by trade, 3D animator. So he's been working on. Lately he's been working on a video game called Neocab. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one.
It sounds familiar.
There's like a couple of guys who used to be involved with Campo Santo from memory who did Firewatch, which like that came out a few years ago, I think 2016, 2015. So he's working on Neocab with them, doing 3D animation for it, and then he's working on another project called Overland, and then he does a lot of like 3D animation, like some things for films and usual corporate stuff. But he was initially trained as a filmmaker, so he always wanted to be a director, but unfortunately, like as he got older, his body just sort of wouldn't allow it, and that led to animation. So in 2016, he had a bit of a spill. So he's been on crutches pretty much his entire life. He broke his legs so many times. Excuse me. So he broke his legs so many times when he was growing up and had so many surgeries that his legs didn't develop at this properly. So most people, if you stand up and put your hands to your side, your hands come about halfway down your thighs. Dan's come down past his knees. So that leads to scoliosis and that sort of stuff. So Dan had a spill on his crutches and unfortunately broke both of his arms and fractured a vertebrae rather. So he was in hospital for about hospital rehab, ICU, 10 weeks, and it was one of those things where like he went in, he got treated for the broken arms, he was in rehab, and then he started getting really sick, and he was in and out of ICU, and it turned out that he had a twisted colon, so he had to have surgery and they removed just shy of a meter of dead intestine, and he was very, very close to dying. He's fine now, which is great, but it was like a very terrifying thing to go through. And the weird the cruel irony from my perspective was, at the same time this is happening, I was actually working on This Could Be Heartbreak. So I was putting on a mock funeral, and while we were doing the post, while I was starting to put the packaging together, I was going between the hospital and work, but obviously I was at the hospital the whole time. So that was interesting. But he's fine he's doing great now. He's killing it, which is fantastic. But part of his coping afterwards, his therapy, shall we say, afterwards, was he just sort of went back into writing because he wanted to make films. He'd been talking about making another film for a long time. He made one when he was young in film school, and it was really good. And so he'd been writing just different things, searching around for an idea, and he landed on this one, which is the film we're making now. So the film's called The God in the Sky, or God in the Sky rather, and I'll try to keep it short. But it's basically it's kind of a day in the life of sort of thing, based around a character named Dee, who's like a 15-year-old girl in high school. And the setting is like modern day, but one day this celestial object shows up in the sky and everyone starts freaking out and having visions, and these sort of pillars or specters start showing up on Earth, and everyone gives everyone on Earth shared visions, and people decide that it's visions of the afterlife. And the story begins sort of as the dust is settled and everyone's sort of figured out that this entity that's arrived is completely benign, and so the world's just starting to go back to normal. It's just like, well, I guess this is how we live now. There's this, another planet in orbit around Earth, and there are these these specters or these pillars of light that are just there. Like, it's just sort of becomes that part of everyday life. And Dee is the only person on Earth to not be experiencing the visions. So it's sort of about her dealing with it and dealing with the crisis of faith. But it's mostly an allegory for living with a chronic illness and that feeling of isolation, and how being around everyone else who is going about their lives completely normally, and because it's like one of the more extreme sort of versions of just that feeling of isolation and feeling different. And he's my brother, so I'm gonna have bias anyway, but obviously, if I do something and it's shit, he tells me. So if I thought it was shit, I would absolutely tell him. But I can genuinely say it's just, the script is incredible. Like, I'm not a crier ever, and the last couple of scenes in this, I was just like, kind of, no, it's okay, fine. But yeah, so we're in the process of making that, which is super cool. So that's the shortest explanation I can give.
I just want to see it. That's
That's cool. I'm glad,
no trailer
man.
required. Just you talking about the concept is perfect.
Definitely a film I need to see.
Yeah.
Same. I'm curious. An element of this podcast is about inspiration,
of course,
and about positive mental attitude, and about how you find your ability to pursue your artwork at times when it might get hard. And I do wonder if your brother's attitude towards the illness he has, if that has been a source of strength and inspiration for you when you're working on your art.
I guess you could say it is. I think it's just sort of because Dan was diagnosed with that very young. So we used to live in the US when I was a kid, like from when I was 6 until I was about 9 years old, and Dan was diagnosed in the US. So, and he was the most hyperactive out of all of us. And we were all peeled off the walls. Like, we were like lizards stuck to the ceiling. If there was anything to climb, we would be climbing it. If there was sugar, we would just gorge, and then everyone else would just sort of go insane. But Dan used to he'd climb the bookshelves and jump up, flip off the bookshelf onto the couch and onto another wall, and if you just sort of shocked a lizard or something like that. And so we all used to play in the front yard. We had in the house we lived in the US, we had a tree in the front yard, and we just used to climb it and swing from it and play. Me, my sister Mahala, and my brother Dan, and the other two were a bit too young to be running around at that time. But Dan would we'd be running, jumping, climbing trees, and then Dan would take breaks just to catch his breath, and he'd start doing it. And my mum started noticing that he was taking more and more breaks and resting longer and playing less, but he was still doing it. And so she took him to the doctors, and we found out that he actually had microscopic fractures in his legs, and he thought being in pain was being tired. So he was actually in searing pain, but he was just like, I need a rest. I need a rest until I'm ready to play again. So he's like, and then he'd just go back to it, and that's sort of how we found out. And we moved back to Australia because healthcare. Yeah. So I don't know, we just kind of. Because Dan's incredible, man. He's the funniest motherfucker I've ever met in my entire life, and he's smart as a whip. And I guess we just whenever something goes wrong, it's okay, we're just dealing with it. It's not it was people would complain and stuff as anyone would, or you're this is why the fuck is this happening to me, not someone else, that sort of thing. But Dan, you'd never hear him complain ever. It's just sort of just keep going, get the job done, or move on to the next thing. It's never stopped him from doing that. And I guess it's not a conscious thing, I guess you could say. It's just sort of we're all kind of that. It's just the. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out a way where it doesn't sound dickish, but it's just kind of, we didn't know better.
Yeah.
It's if there is an obstacle in the way, you get past the obstacle, however you need to, without being a prick.
Completely.
Yeah.
And
so
That makes sense. It's like it's performing the alchemist's trick every single
Absolutely.
moment of your life, basically.
Yeah. Did you just bring Full Metal Alchemist into this?
I
Because
did.
if you did, I'm on board, man. Yeah, we're in. Brother. Yeah, cool. But yeah, like there's it's just kind of that's just the attitude. Like it's kind of like a normal work ethic. It's like, all right, this is an issue. We can't control what happened. We can control what comes next. Let's go. So,
Now, earlier before we were recording,
Yeah.
you mentioned that there was a time that you got to meet a very important person.
this is true. Yes, this came up because of your shirt.
Yes, so we need to hear this story, and I
Right.
think listeners need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, start when you're ready.
Okay.
Dream guest.
Dream guest, yeah. So this is, I do love this story. It's funny. So you're wearing a Scottie Pippen t-shirt, Bulls 33.
Pippen ain't
and,
easy.
Sorry?
Pippen ain't easy.
Jesus Christ, get
Good Lord.
out.
Love it. Yeah, so when we were, when I would have been around 15, 16 at the time, so I'd say 1999. Dan got a wish from the Starlight Foundation, and we ended up getting, our whole family ended up getting flown to Chicago, and we got to meet Michael Jordan, which was insane.
Jesus.
Yeah, so this one of my favorite things that has ever happened in my life. It probably will be the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. But yeah, so we I think it was year 2000. We flew over to the States. We got to meet Michael Jordan. So what happened was we went to his restaurant in Chicago, and it was us and like 11 other families, and there's a function room upstairs. So it was like all the families were on different tables and just kind of sitting around. And then Michael Jordan comes out, and his publicist comes out before, and he's like, "Oh hey," and there's like dads everywhere with like bags of shit to sign, like just bags and bags and bags, like overflowing, and like everyone's wearing Bulls caps and just sort of going, "Can't wait to meet Michael," like as if you wouldn't. And so his publicist comes down, he's like, he can only sign 2 things per family. He's cut his thumb on a cigar cutter.
That's the most Michael Jordan thing ever.
That
right?
is.
Did he also lose the cigar cutter in a game of golf on a bet?
Possibly. But yeah, so like he walked around the room, and like you just see the dads go, "Oh man," like just the shoulders sink, and they're like, "All right, pick your 2 favorite things." And we were the last family. And so, like I said, it was a reasonable sized family. So it was me, my 4 siblings, and my 2 parents. And we're just like, and we all grew up playing basketball, and my dad grew up in Chicago, so we were raised like Chicago. It was like Cubs, Bears, Bulls. And so we're just losing it. And Space Jam had come out a few years before, and we were also raised on Looney Tunes, which explains a lot. So like we're just like, "Oh, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be a fucking circus." Like all of us are gonna be singing, this and quoting that and talking about basketball. So it eventually gets around to our table, and that's exactly what happens. And like we talk basketball for a little bit, and then it just descends into a circus. And from what I remember, it was my sister who got the ball rolling. So she just, I think we were talking about something arbitrary, and then Space Jam came into it. And so we started just talking about Looney Tunes and doing this, that, and the other. And then my sister just slams her arm on the table and goes, "Hey, Mike, check this out." And she puts her arm down and sort of hyperextends her elbow out. So it's like, it looks like it's broken. Like it's gone out like on like a 25-degree angle in the wrong direction, and just sort of twists in an arc. And he's like, my mom's just got like her hands go on her face. She's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And like there's a crowd of people watching this at this point as well, because all they heard was like Looney Tunes voices coming from that table with all the weird people and the funny accents. And so that happens, and Mike's like, "Oh, I could do some of that stuff too, check this out." And he starts like ripping his fingers back as he's double jointed and doing all these little twist tricks, and then people are flipping eyelids, and then it culminated with all of us singing "Kill the Wabbit." And then we got a photo like with Michael Jordan singing "Kill the Wabbit" with Michael Jordan, and we got a photo with him where we're all flipping our eyelids. And I've never been able to find the photo.
I was like, can that be that album cover for the artwork for the show?
That would be. I think I would just be done with everything after that. I'd go to the bush and hide somewhere.
Is there any photographic evidence?
There is somewhere. I remember there were 2 cameras. There was one because we thought we got it on one, but we didn't. and there was a journalist there, but I have no idea what the paper is, so I haven't been able to track it down. But like, it's American journalism, so there's an archive somewhere. So somewhere in whatever paper covered that event that day, in the archives, there is a picture of an Australian family flipping their eyelids with Michael Jordan. And if I can ever find it, I will die happy.
And if you don't, this could be heartbreak.
Oh, hey! Now you can leave.
You could say that he's already lived his American dream.
Yes.
I'm done with this.
Oh, Dad's ahoy.
We have like love children out there somewhere.
Oh man.
Sorry, Timmy.
Oh, went to get my eyes checked the other day. Took some glasses in, gave them to the optometrist. Haven't seen him since. Get that, everybody.
I'm just wondering how loud I have to drop this mic to get like a mic drop.
Just do a Chappelle, like bang it on your knees.
Wait, does that make it a mic drop?
Kind of would, yeah.
I can't do this anymore.
Isn't that what you call when it gets dumped?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh.
Anyway,
alright, moving on.
This is a perfect opportunity though, because
Yeah.
Rad kind of sounds like Dad, Dad kind of sounds like Rad, which presents
Perfect
us
segue.
with a perfect segue to go to a segment we call a Rad Break.
Rad break.
Or a dad break.
Where we ask you a question that might not fit the narrative of the podcast as such, or we play a little game with you. We're going to do both with you because I think you'll respond well to each of those options. So before we get into your career as a art director a little bit more, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. It's called Rad or Fad. And you're going to tell me if this thing is rad or fad and should die.
Yeah.
That's a little bit harsh.
Yep. So what I want to know is the resurgence of 90s themed artwork that's almost anti-art by nature. In that it's like Comic Sans font over
Fad.
Rad or fad.
Yeah.
With the collage in the
all
background.
The vaporware shit.
Yeah, the vapor.
Yeah. No, that's a fad. It's very much a fad. Like it's just let it go. Let it go. And I thought you were putting me into some dangerous corners there. Like 90s themed things. That's me. Like
I'm a fad.
It's like I am a fad. Yeah. I think I know the stuff you talk about.
Yeah.
It's like really big in 3D at the moment. Yeah. A friend. So a buddy of mine, Tim Grove, who we did Tash Sultana's live visuals together.
Yeah, awesome.
So we ended up becoming quite good friends after that. So we talk like every other day. And we were discussing this exact thing. This sort of like this trend that's going on at the moment where it's all that kind of like SVGA sort of stuff. So like lots of pastels and like abstract kind of shapes and rainbows and everything. And it's just kind of Tim had the best word for it, is ill-informed design.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my opinion. But having said that, there is stuff that comes out of that does look pretty good. But it's just sort of too much. I don't personally care for it, so fad.
I've got another one for Rad or Fad for you. Space Jam 2. Rad or Fad.
Who's doing that again? Is it
LeBron
Kobe?
James.
No, LeBron.
Right. Yeah. Jury's out on that one. Who was directing that? It was someone big. It wasn't like Steve McQueen. Was it the guy who did...
It's Black Panther's director.
I know his name. It's escaping me. He did...
Isn't it
Creed
Ryan
as well.
Coogler?
Ryan Coogler, yes. Dude, you know what? I back it. I'm gonna say that's gonna be rad.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be rad too. I'm definitely gonna go see it.
It's Looney Tunes, man. Like that'll be great, and like that's like so that'll probably be Billy West voicing some of the characters as well. Like,
yeah,
well,
so
I think he did. He's definitely done some Warner Brothers stuff before, and who else would be doing that? Nolan North. I think he's done a bit of it.
I wonder though, are we gonna have Bill Murray in it? Will he return in Space Jam 2?
I reckon that's a guarantee. Yeah, I think if like as long as Bill Murray is on 2 feet, he will come back and do that sort of shit. Well, like he had the cameo in the new Ghostbusters movie as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering though, how Coogler can do this movie, Space Jam 2, after doing a movie like I think it was Fruitvale Station The one with Michael B. Jordan about the
Right.
real life
yeah.
shooting, like the police shooting.
That was his first film, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't
So-
seen that yet. It's been on my to-watch list for a long time.
Going from that, which is definitely not a kid-friendly movie
Mm.
or a person-friendly movie, really,
Yeah.
to doing Space Jam 2 is
Yeah.
quite a step.
Well,
I
you could
think.
argue the same thing about going into Black Panther.
True. I just really hope he casts Michael B. Jordan for hilarity reasons.
Yeah,
He'll come in there for
Can't
some
get
re-
Michael
Dude,
Jordan.
you
in it.
know he's gonna that's gonna happen. Like he'll be like it'll be like something like they'll be at the game at the end,
Yeah.
and everyone will be like Michael, and it'll be like the back of his head, like have a shaved head, and it'll have the number 23 on it. It'll turn around and it'll just be Michael B. Jordan. Like,
Well,
and it'll be like,
He
oh,
absolutely crushed it in the
the
All-Star
All-Star game.
Celebrity game. Michael B. Jordan,
Really?
good
Yeah.
basketball player.
He
no
is.
shit.
But how funny was that scene? He had the Jordan, like he had a Jordan jersey on, like it just said
Yeah.
Jordan on the back of it, and he's playing under that,
Yeah.
and like they announced it, and they're like Mike, like they were, I can't even remember what they
Michael
said.
B.
Yeah.
Yeah, they playing under number
From
23.
North Carolina.
Excellent.
I want to know. I want to know though, what's the worst font out of Comic Sans
Mm-hmm.
or that Jokerman ITC that was like on like every school newsletter?
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go with Comic Sans because I'm like sure there's something good that you could do with the other one, like something that would be appropriately kitschy.
Yeah,
Or
delete
like,
it.
yeah, aside from delete it, but I'm sure you could work that in somewhere where it would be like I don't hate that. We just like feel unclean.
Kids circus themed birthday party or
Yeah, it'll show up like that. That'll show up in It Too now. Like that'll be like there'll be like fires around Barry, and it'll just be like Pennywise the Clown written in Joker.
It's gonna be on Tash's next album. Maybe it's just called Jokerman
Please
ITC,
don't.
the whole album.
You know what? I suspect that Tash might not be on board for that.
coming next from DC Comics, Batman, Jokerman, ITC.
Oh God.
Tash's next album, it is now known as Better Than Comic Sans.
BTC for short. So we got one more component to this.
Hit me.
I know that you're a massive film nerd. So I want to
Yeah.
know which one of your album artworks or pieces you've art directed you'd like to see fleshed out into a piece of narrative cinema or TV.
Gatherer.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Man has thought about this before.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's actually got the screenplay written.
Yeah.
You're not far off. You're way closer than you think.
Yeah, I'm a clairvoyant.
Yeah. Stop looking at my underwear.
You're a song by the story so far.
Oh lordy. So many dad jokes, I love it. Yeah, no, the Gatherer stuff. Yeah. So all that like kind of anything in this like whenever I do anything kind of sci-fi, which is always drawn. So it'd definitely be something like that. So funnily enough, the reason why I had an immediate answer for that is because something came out of that for me. So because I love science fiction, like everything. So which is, I think like out of that when was that? That was 2017. So, and then later that year, so 2017, I was, for a short stretch, I was doing concept artwork on a video game that I think is called something different now, and I probably shouldn't say what it was because it's still in development to my knowledge, and I haven't been allowed to release anything, but a video game that was very science fiction based, and it was a fun experience, but it was a passion project. I was putting a lot of time into it, and it didn't work out. So I eventually left the project, and my brother Dan was working on it as well. And sort of after that, we're like, well, we still want to do video games. So like, how the hell do we do this? So we started coming up with an idea, and I ended up fleshing out an idea for an adventure game. It could either be an adventure game or a comic, and it like a very Uncharted sort of vibe. Like if it was like set in a science fiction sort of universe, like. That's a mash between like something Mobius would conjure up and the Uncharted
You just gave me a
series.
hard-on mention. That.
But yeah, so that led into this thing, which is called, like, the title I have for it at the moment is Suya, like Tsuya, and I won't go heaps into it because we'll be here all day, but it's something that's been in the back of my head for a very long time, and I'm starting to do the initial concept stuff for. I have no idea where the fuck it'll go, but it's just sort of, it may end up just being something I create an Instagram account for and just sort of flesh the world out, or it turns into a web comic, or...
Well, if you need a publisher, if it becomes a comic,
Yeah.
hit me up. I got one for you.
Done.
We're getting away from, I guess, the fun that we're having because we can't
Yeah.
have all the fun.
There will be no fun anymore.
None. What I want to know...
That was a little bit too...
I said no more fun.
This is how you get ants. What's wrong with you?
No soup for you.
No surreal. No coke.
Well, firstly,
No
I was
cocaine.
going to say, like, how do you balance something? But now I want to know, like, how do you balance, like, a glass of Coke on a table?
With great difficulty. Yeah.
What I want to know, after you finish licking your hands,
Yeah,
is...
I might actually just wash my
yeah,
hand real
you
quick.
go do that. We'll just have waiting music on.
Yeah.
How do you manage to balance your commercial work with just personal projects?
I cheat. I cheat.
Knew it.
Slow beggar.
Yeah, like I cheat less than Lou Bega. No, I cheat in the regard that, pretty much like the music stuff is it's not far removed from personal projects. So, is I've been doing this. It'll be 10 years that I've been doing what I do now in July, which is crazy to think about. But because I've always kind of worked in music and I've always worked with bands and just sort of. I ended up just sort of carving this little corner of the world for myself where I do my thing. Like if I do something, it looks like I've done it. So people come to me for that. So a lot of the stuff conceptually will be like, I'll flesh it out and like work with the artists. And if not, sometimes it'll just be something that I've got this idea. And so I kind of cheat in that regard as like, so pretty much everything I work on is like the vast majority of it is stuff that I would do for a personal project anyway, and I'm fortunate enough that people give me money to do it instead of me having to find how to do it. But there are a shitload of personal projects that I've wanted to do over the years and just haven't gotten around to doing. Like there was one at the end of last year. So I used to live in East Melbourne for 4 years in like this big old place. And so I had to work from home office there, and I used to do photo shoots in the downstairs area because it was an enormous place and nobody really used downstairs, so I just kind of monopolized it. And but before we moved out of that place, it was just like it was time to get out, and also the house was starting to fall down around us because it was a 104-year-old building, and it Melbourne real estate, they didn't really maintain it at all. And so I wanted to do a shoot in the front room of the house because there'd be this beautiful light that would come in the evening that sort of come in through one of the side windows, and we had this big empty space at the front of the house. And I had just learnt how to do origami because a couple of months before I did the trophy eyes art. And so me, with the help of a couple of friends, and specifically my friend LJ, she helped heaps, folded like 200 black paper cranes, and the idea was to hang them from the ceiling. I wanted to do an installation and take a photo because like, whenever I do anything photography, I try to do as much as humanly possible in camera. Like really the only thing that stops me doing everything completely in camera is money. And so I wanted to do this one, like, because this was just sort of cheap to do. I wanted to sort of have it like a big like burst of black cranes, like they burst out of the wall and were sort of flying across the room. And like that was a personal project that I went pretty far down the line to do, and I just ran out of time because we had to get rid of like 8 years worth of shit in the house. So but yeah, so at home at the moment I have like boxes with 200 paper cranes in it that I'm probably going to do I want to try to do something with over the next month, because otherwise they're just going to go to waste and get musty.
How cool would it be to like get to like go to the Yarra, like just jump like near that bridge and just put them
Throw
in
them
there,
in.
and then just like watch people like really confused as to what they are because they're black as well. So it's like sort of like ominous.
If you did that, I reckon if you could do that, if you did it with like bigger ones, like ones that were like say the size of a plate, and they could float, then that would definitely make people, what the fuck's going on? Who died?
It would make the news. People would be like,
I reckon, yeah.
What happened?
All right, we've just provided evidence. If like this just sort of happens, people are going to come to us straight.
They are immediately.
Like
We are the Zodiac Killer.
yeah. Ted, is that you? I didn't know. When did you get here from Texas?
Shut up, Gacy.
Don't bring up the clown. Don't bring up the clown.
Now, you've worked with a heap of quite notable artists now, but that obviously wasn't always the case.
No, it was
you had
only
to
up
start
until...
somewhere. At what point did it segue from you actively seeking work as a freelancer to you being approached by people to work on their projects?
Earlier than you'd think. So, and a big reason for that was because I was trying to make the music thing to work when let me try that again in English. I was trying to make the music thing work for most of my 20s.
Yeah.
So I didn't start studying until I was 23. I used to work under a moniker. I used to work on the moniker of Apollo Collective, and that was my first studio name, because like it seemed like a better idea to name myself after a studio. That way it didn't seem like some kid working from his parents' house, you know? So I got like... so I was working... I was still living at home, because I'd just come straight out of that, and I was like, no, I'm just starting my business straight out of the gate. So I was at home for the first 3 years of that business, and then moved back out, and ever since. But I had the luxury of like, I would go out and it was very organic as well, because like for the longest time I was working within the punk hardcore scene, like in that, like which would eventually go on to be like the Unifieds and before I was like Set Fire to My Home and all those bands that we kind of grew up with. And I just started it was like, I was friends with a lot of these people, so it'd be like, hey, can I do something for you? Or like, let's work together on something. And then it changed. I can't remember when, but reasonably early on it changed from me talking to people predominantly, going, hey, I'd love to do some stuff with you guys, to them going, hey, do you want to do a t-shirt or do you want to do a poster? It was posters was like the thing early on. So yeah, so I had, because I was at home, I was afforded a very big luxury there. I didn't have to struggle to pay rent, like, in like Melbourne or Sydney sort of rent. I was, feeding myself, taking care of myself, not being a piece of shit son. But like, I didn't have that pressure, so I could take my time a lot more in that regard.
Would that be something that you would suggest to other people who are in a position where they're in a good, settled family environment, to take that approach?
Of course, absolutely.
Stay at home for as long as you can, kids.
Probably, I wouldn't do that one. Yeah, I wouldn't do. Let's look. We won't go the reconnaissance failure to launch route. But yeah, no, absolutely. Like that. Well, like that's the thing with like creative fields, right? Like it's very rarely going to pay as much as a desk job, and it takes a lot of work to get, like anything creative. You've got to sort of find you've got to find your vibe, you got to find your style, you got to find your voice if you're a writer or anything like that. And so it's a lot harder to do that if you have to balance like other jobs, like, so that you can make money, so you can feed yourself and pay rent. And like, most creatives I know have like lived with their folks for a while, have like lived out and gone back. And I think that's also just kind of, it's the world that we're living in now as well. Like this, it's not the world that people our age, like the one that we live in we were told like 10 years ago, if you can't get it, well, hey, like nobody's got money right now and nobody can get a job, so I guess you should just go make a job. And everyone kind of went, okay, and then went out and made their own work, like created their own things. And then, like housing, like cost of living gets higher, and the music, just like different fluctuations in the music industry and stuff like that. Like I went back home and lived at home for 6 months in 2015, because in 2015 the music industry just went like completely imploded. Like it was like that was the year of the last Soundwave, like that sort of happened. And then a bunch of friends of mine who were all like in the music industry were all, like, we would meet up just for drinks and like to catch up and stuff, and we'd be like, are you getting work? I'm not getting work. Like I remember my personal income that year took a 30k drop.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's a really interesting insight too, because people don't realize how much a festival of that size and the other festivals that died alongside it, how much ancillary work that brings in.
Soundwave was like the last one, but every festival sort of died off. Like the festival circuit in Australia just coughed and fell over, and it was done. So all that sort of disappeared, and then the touring slows down because of that, because you don't have this, like, a lot of those festivals are also like, they're all, they're promoters the rest of the year when they're not doing the festivals, so they're touring heaps of artists, and less people are doing that. So, and then releases are getting coming out later, or they're getting pushed back, like all sorts of things like that. So it's very symptomatic. But yeah, like, like if you've got going back to what you were talking about, like if you've got the opportunity, like that you can have that support structure and that will allow you to find your feet, then you should absolutely do it. And it's just like, the only difference is like, it's like everyone's different. Everyone's family structures are different. It may not even be a family. It may be a friend or something like
100%.
that.
It can be anywhere where there's a room that you can set up a computer.
Totally. Exactly. Like,
it could be your local cafe if they're willing to have you.
What I want to know though, going from that, when you were starting off, even as like, let's say like Apollo and stuff, did you give yourself sort of like a deadline? Like, look, if this doesn't work in 5 years time, like did you go, look, there's like a cutoff where I'll go and get a 9-to-5 job, or go do something?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did. So the way that I started was, I did this thing in Victoria. We have, I don't know if it's still around, I think it is, but I did this thing called the NEIS scheme, NEIS.
Yeah, I think it's still around. New
Enterprise Initiative scheme. And I was introduced to that by Sam Octagon, who you guys might know from Iron Mind.
Yes.
So we've known each other since we were 15. We lived around the corner from each other, and we met when at my first job working at Hungry Jack's. And Sam's, obviously super artistic as well. And someone put him onto the NEIS scheme, and then I did it the year after him. And so like we've always been, quite close for a number of reasons, but like, especially in our career, like we always catch up and just sort of like talk about like what we're doing. And very early on as well, like it's because the way that would work is you would get, the NEIS grant was $12,000 over 12 months, and it was paid to you like any other welfare or something, or like Centrelink. So you could, but the only difference was you could make as much money as you could. Like that was the idea. It's like, here's a base level of income, just so you still, no matter what, you can still feed yourself, you can still pay rent, and this is where you start. Then go out and make as much as you can. You got 12 months, and you have a support network in place. Like you'd have like, you had a mentor, you had access to accountants, and like anything you needed that would help you get things along, because they wanted people to succeed. They didn't want people to fail. Like, it's not like you can do it 2 years in a row. So yeah, I had a year there, and then I think initially I think I gave myself another year after that, and I was like, all right, well, cool, I've gotten through this year, I've made X amount of money. That's nowhere near what it is to be an adult. So let's give it another year and see how it goes. And then next year I had, like, even if you remove the grant, I'd made the same amount and then another half on top. And it still wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough. It was like, at this point I was like making just below a barista's wage. And then the next year it would go up, and then by the end of the third year I'd started working with Soundwave. But it became, as I remember, like, my attitude was like, well, this is an experiment. If it fails, then it doesn't matter. It was an experiment. It was never like, I'm doing this and it's not going to fail. It was like, all right, let's do this and see what happens. Like, see where it goes. So yeah, there was definitely that attitude of like, 2 years, that's the cutoff point. If it doesn't feel like it's going to be a career after that, then let's go. Maybe I should go get a job.
Go back to me, like Hungry Jack's.
I would have just tried to get a job in a design studio. Something like
doing
that.
graphic design, like soul-sucking, brief-driven.
it's not all that. It's not all like that. Like, I still do commercial work. Like, I do a little bit of stuff with advertising agencies these days. Like, because the vast majority of what I do is music, like 95%. But I think 2017, I made a very large effort to just bring that number back, because I just didn't want to be leaning on it as much, and I wanted to do different work and meet different people and just sort of expand my network a bit more. So, as much as I love being in music, there are other things in my life that I love as well, and so I thought I went and did this thing called Award School, which is like an advertising course. Yeah. Advertising. Certainly.
Recommended to me by many people.
Yeah, you would have a field day with it, actually. I'm not gonna lie, it is the hardest fucking thing I've ever done in my life, and that includes Soundwave. Yeah. Like, and what we did when I was there, we did something like 10 festivals in 3 years, which was insane. Like, and so this award school I found more difficult than that. But it's a really cool challenge, though, because it forces you to think completely differently to the way you normally would. But your focus is written word, like, journalism background, and like that's where a lot, like in advertising, that's where like they love to say that the creative thinkers are the copywriters, and in the vast majority of cases that's very true. Like, because their focus is to come up with ideas, and then the art director is to do the same thing, but they have to come up with a visual thing to go with it. So, but yeah.
So you found that program obviously helped you with your ability to translate and cross over into the commercial field.
Exactly. I finished and I got a gig. So I was splitting my time between music stuff and then working in house, and I had a really great time doing that, and did that for a stretch, and then just the music thing just started picking up a bit more. Amazing. Like, it was really just sort of favoring one thing over another. It was like, well, I've always loved doing music more than I've loved doing the other stuff. And if I have the opportunity to, enjoy what I'm doing and make the same make the same income, if not more, then obviously I'm going to go with that. So
it's always good when you can sort of enjoy what you do as well.
Totally, yeah.
So, I mean,
and you gotta, like, if you want to make it like something that's livable, you gotta work hard for that. Like, you gotta. It's not like that thing. It's like, oh, you gotta earn it. Just like, true, but it's just kind of a dickish thing to say. It's like it's almost denying someone the opportunity to pursue something before they've even pursued it. It's very discouraging. So it's just, like, that's less the attitude. It's more like, if you want it, like, you just, like, you gotta love it. Like, if you love something, then it becomes like your obsession, and it's fun, and like you're thinking about it even in your sleep and stuff. And when you obsess over something that much, then it eventually becomes your path, and just to, like, in varying degrees of intensity. But yeah.
Speaking of loving what you do, who have been your favorite clients to work with?
It's a lot.
So just name them all. We love name droppers.
Yeah, we need name drops.
True. So like Hellions, definitely. Like, I've always loved working with those guys, and I became like I've just through the process of doing shit over the years, like, I've become friends with a lot of people I work with, but like I've become like good friends with those guys. Like, I was hanging out with Wad the other night. And like Af and I talk like almost every other day, usually because we're conspiring about something. But I absolutely love working with those guys. We just have we're on the same page with pretty much everything, and so they're really great. Yeah. So another one would be Tash. They are amazing to work with. All their team is like, they're just lovely people, like really lovely people there. And Tash and I creatively see eye to eye on a very crazy level. Sorry, that's my phone.
I am so leaving
that's
this in.
That's the Uncharted thing. Cool. Yep, we good.
Who have been your favorite clients to work with?
Lots of them. Okay, so I reckon top 3, Gatherer. Love working with Gatherer, or I loved. Unfortunately, they broke up last year. But so they were actually a band that I approached. Like, I hadn't approached. I think I was working with a lot of metalcore bands at the time, and like, I do like metalcore. I do listen to it, but not as much as I used to. My tastes have changed as I got older. But I wanted to. There was a time where it was just like, it was all I was doing, and I wasn't really stoked on the sandbox that I was playing in every day, like, because it was just that vibe where like everything was like quite dark colors and dark themes and stuff, yeah, like black and blues and that sort of thing. And I really wanted, like, I love bright colors. I always have, like, just sort of hypercolor shit and like doing weird stuff. So I actually approached the Gatherer dudes. A friend of mine, Nick, introduced me to him. He's from New Zealand as well, and I think he was living with Sam at the time, who's one of the singers in Gatherer. So he introduced us, or put us in touch, and I was like, hey man, been a big fan of your band for ages. I'd love to do some work with you. Hit me back if you'd be interested. And they're like, fuck yeah, man, that'd be cool as hell. So we met up, had a beer, and got along famously, and ended up becoming mates with them. They're wonderful, wonderful people and enormously talented. And then we started doing stuff together. So that one was Heavy Hail. That was the first thing we did together, and then we did the EP afterwards. The only sad story there was that one was, so I it's on my Instagram now, but originally that was going to be a longer record. That was going to be a full length that they were going to release in 2 parts. So we did the front cover, which is like, it's like this priestess riding like a land dragon is what I used to call it, and then all these ships come in and it's like on a cliff face, and it's mostly like kind of a low angle looking up at this cliff face, and there's a sky, and it's like, it looks like an invasion. And then the second EP was the exact reverse shot of that. So it's over the priestess's shoulder looking down into the valley that they're standing on. So at first it looks like like kind of like an army invading. And then if you switch it around, it's actually an army protecting a bunch of pilgrims sort of going to this new place. Like, so going to a land that they've discovered, or ancient sort of thing. So and you don't get to do that sort of shit a lot of the time. So they're great to work with. Hellions dudes are the same. Like, I get along really well with those guys. And then conceptually we're always on the same page. I love the music that they do. They're all they're all wildly creative dudes. Like, Wob is a genius, like a literal fucking genius. So like, I remember reading his lyrics for the first time. I think it was when we did Indian Summer, which turned 4 like yesterday. Like, that was 4 years ago. Yeah.
Such a good album.
Yeah,
I still love it.
That's a great one. I really like that one. But then Opera.
Yeah, that's still. I hate to say it, it's still my favorite album of theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, controversial.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, I love whenever we get to work on records together, because I get to read Bob's lyrics, and like, it just gets more conceptual as it goes. And I am very much about like world building and character development, stuff like that. And that was something we got to do with Rue especially, which is really cool. So like that art did change quite drastically, but so we did a poster as part of the release. I think as part of the pre-orders.
That was a really good poster.
Thanks, man. Cheers. So that was originally the album cover, and the story with that poster is like so that's like following the Lotus narrative, and then characters that Matt sort of put into the lyrics throughout Rue. So like, you had the Lotus Eater, and like there was a child in there who's like the kind of like in Blueberry, there's the kid sort of like yelling at this Mr. Blue character. So like, Mr. Blue is like the old man in the poster. The kid is like representative of the children that are there. You have the Reaper, who's like kind of evolved into this thing. And when I pitched the idea for the album, I fleshed out this whole narrative with the intention of turning into the things that I'm still on their case about turning it into. So, but yeah, and then like as things do, they sometimes they change and you pivot. So like, we ended up with the photography album artworks, and like that. I love what we ended up with. It was really cool, and like, as part of that, we got to combine those two, sort of like that illustrated aesthetic with the really clean photography and lots of bright colors for the live visuals, which was super cool. So it's an evolving thing there. And then the last one would be Tash Sultana. Like, I love working with them, and like all the people around them. They're just genuinely nice people. Like, it's like, you always work with good people, but sometimes it's just like, it's a real joy to work with them. Like, so like, like their manager Dave, we were attached at the hip for quite a while there, like towards the second half of last year, because we just did so much stuff. So, and the great thing with that is like, Tash and I just seem to be on exactly the same page as far as just our tastes, like our aesthetic, like what we like aesthetically, and the like where in the background of where those things come from. Like, because I grew up, like I'm 34, and like when I was growing up, like surf like surf brands were just like the shit. Like, you know, you remember like when you were in primary school?
They really were.
They really were.
Mambo.
Right? Yeah, like Mambo. And, like,
Roxy.
You draw like all the logos on your pencil case and stuff, and it was all that, and that stuff all kind of like led into that punk rock thing as well. Like, it kind of led into things like Pennywise and No Effects, and so then it kind of leads into like that photocopied, really grungy, like distress everything sort of aesthetic. And if you look at Tash's art, like that's where my contribution of it comes in, is because I came onto that album project when they had, so Ben Lopez, who's this amazing tattooist based out of Melbourne, he painted the album cover, and so I came in, they're like, hey, we've got this painting, we want to turn it into a cover. So that was my role there. So I you know, tweaked things around and moved it and just kind of contorted it to be an album cover, and then then everything else that you see of Tash's is my work. And my pitch to Tash when we were doing that is like, I would love to do this, because like, you know, Tash is into surfing, Tash is into skateboarding, and like it's kind of like, and it's all this DIY sort of work ethic, and just the two things just kind of wound up meshing perfectly. So basically everything that we get to do together is like we're in complete agreement about it. It's like, hey, what do you think of this stuff? Well, let's try something like this. Like, and Tash is pretty much every time like, yep, love it, fucking sick, let's do it.
Yeah.
So back on
the thing, but yeah, like those are three that immediately come to mind. Like,
brilliant.
There are plenty more, but like those were I think the reason why I picked those three is because I get to be myself more with those artists. Like all the stuff that, like, so I'm in the process of rejigging everything at the moment, and for my website and that, and it's all, I'm culling a lot of shit, and so they'll relaunch in a few months' time. When you see it, it's just gonna be bright fucking colors, and that's all the stuff that when I get to do it, I'm like, this is me being myself, and it's generally the really bright, weird shit. So
I like your typeset for your logo, like your name on your website.
handwriting.
I love it.
Thanks.
It's like every 90s shape or pattern that had ever designed.
ADD in like type form.
The artwork for Flow State was nominated for an ARIA.
It was. That was cool as hell.
It really was.
Yeah.
Now, I personally think you were robbed.
Thank you.
So you don't have to say it.
Controversial.
Not that I think there's anything wrong with the artwork that won, but I just think the overall conceptual piece that was the artwork was incredible.
Yeah. Dude, that painting is incredible. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah.
And I think the whole package together was amazing, especially the vinyl.
Thank you.
Was an incredible concept and idea.
We're actually doing we're doing a re-release of it this year, very soon. It's up for pre-order now, but so like when we did that packaging, everything that we like, so when I pitched the idea to Tash, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, they were thrilled about it. Like, yep, let's go do it. And we got everything in there that we wanted to, except for one thing, which was that we wanted the deluxe LP to be printed on iridescent, like holographic stock. Like, do you guys? I don't know if you guys like Arcade Fire at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you see the reflector?
Yeah.
Artwork? It was like, so we're repressing Flow State with the holographic sleeve. And so it's like, yep, this is exactly how we envisioned it. This is fucking mad. So
don't tell me that, because like the day it came out, no, I bought the deluxe. I got the JB exclusive for that yellow and orange like vinyl. I was like, I want that one.
Yeah, that's my favorite color.
So I did cancel my pre-order from another company, which I won't say.
Yeah.
When they went and said, "Oh, look, JB's got this one," and they showed the photo.
Yeah.
And I got it the day, and it was the whole book was just delicious as well.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Well, we've been talking to Pat for a very long time, and we don't want to keep him
we could easily
for the rest of his entire day. But the reality is, we've known each other for years and years and years. And we've never
we can usually just keep talking.
We have informal, long-form conversations all the time. So it's been nice having you on to chat. There are a couple more things we want to touch on before we let you go out into the brave world of outside, which is about 38 degrees right now.
Yeah, into the sun.
Into the sun. The first of which...
So you're basically Judge Dredding me. You're sending me into the waste.
Mega City 1.
Who will be stricken from our memories and our
exile.
First thing I want to do is give you an opportunity to play teacher or guru, if you like. And that's give us some tips for being a Radult, like yourself. For people who are looking to get into the art direction game, essentially, what would you recommend that those folks do?
It sounds cheesy to say, but just go for it. Like, if there's something you want to do, then don't wait around for people to give you the opportunity. Like, you gotta. It's that thing that, like, everyone is told that at some point in their life or some point in their career, no matter what it is and no matter who it is, because it's true. It's and it's like, it's a cliche because it's true, and it's become a cliche because people have been saying it for fucking millennia. So yeah, like, if there's something you want to do, then just try to find a way to do it. It doesn't have to be the full scale bullshit crazy version of the idea, but like just some version of it. Like, it's something just to sort of get it out into the world. And once you start doing that, then that's like more opportunities to do that will flow out of it. Yeah.
Well,
like, you could say the same thing about comics, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's 100% like that. You've got to either take the plunge or don't take the plunge. I think that you would live to regret if you don't.
That's the thing,
But then
right?
it's the consequence. If you don't do that, and any guilt or regret that you feel by not following that is on no one but yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that what have you got to lose if you're going to feel that for however long?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, would you rather look back when you're like 50 or something and be like, oh, I had the opportunity to do this when I was in my 20s or in my 30s and I didn't take it? Like, that you dwell on that. You don't, like, you dwell on things that you didn't do or things that you didn't try or things you should have done. You don't dwell on things that you did. Like, you sit around and tell stories about it, and you meet people because of that shit. Like, you're not gonna meet anyone for things that you didn't try, or like, you're not gonna meet new people because you didn't go to this thing, or like try to make a comic, try to make a film, try to like do some album art, draw a fucking dog fighting a T-Rex on top of a flaming tower of pizzas.
And there's a puma in the background as well. There
We
always
should
has
draw that. Like,
there needs to be mountain cats.
Art for this
done.
for this episode. Now,
It is like that though, isn't it?
It
You
is.
have
Absolutely.
to, but then at the same time, you can come back from bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I mean, all
Look
you
at
have
Trump.
To,
You can be the president. Like, you can come back from bankruptcy and become racist.
not a goal that we'd hope people would
No,
set.
let's
But
not
it
shoot
is-
for that one.
But it is
you
attainable
can't do that.
nonetheless.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting aspect of your job is that you're an art director. You're
Yes.
not just an artist, right?
Yes.
And I don't mean just an artist in a derogatory sense. I mean it in the sense that you have many
I'm
other
offended.
things that are included.
I'm
he's-
offended that you didn't try to offend me.
that are
he
included.
said that really bad J word that we don't like
Yeah,
to
we
use.
don't like. We don't like the just word on.
Just?
Yeah, unless it's
Oh,
justice.
yeah.
We don't like just.
Good one, Dad.
Italicized.
Yeah. But
Just the band.
artists can be quite selfish by nature.
Can be. Ah.
Or are by nature. As an art director, obviously you're not creating a piece of art and going, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're working with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Many hands end up on what becomes the final product.
Many hands make rad work.
Yes, many hands
Yeah.
make rad work. Would you have any advice to creators that have trouble letting go?
You just
to
gotta
be able to do so?
The trick with that is just to surround yourself with people that you trust. Seek out people who you admire or aspire to a certain quality about them. Like, if there's if there are illustrators that you want to work with, and if you're doing art direction, you want something to look like Ken Taylor did it or something, then don't talk to Ken Taylor if you can. Like, if you want photography to look, great Melbourne photographer. I love this dude, Daniel Anderson. Like, we've been talking about wanting to do a collab for years, but he's a great photographer. If you want to do something weird and surreal, go talk to Dan. It's like, if you want cool web stuff, you do this. If you want to, make film clips, or you want to build sets, or you want to do lighting shit, just like try to find the people that are doing the stuff that you want to do, who seem like good people. Like, you always quickly figure out who the shitheads are and who the good people are, and you just hang on to the good people, and eventually, I think the biggest thing is, like, just to be patient, because it's very like, and I had the same problem when I was starting out as well. And when I was younger, like I wanted to be successful now. Like it has to be this week. It has to be this, like, you know, yesterday or whatever. Like it's very hard, and like you kind of people you look up to, you kind of see that they've got these networks in place, and like they're friends with all these really talented people and stuff, and you're like, how did that happen? And it's like, well, one day it happened because one day if you keep doing it and you surround yourself with people that you like and people that who you respect, like you respect their craft and you respect them as people, you're going to wind up with that network. It's just like you always aspire to something else. You don't aspire to what you're a part of, you know? And it's just it's an accident. But that's probably the advice, is like just try to surround yourself with people where you respect the craft and you respect the people.
Let listeners know where they can find you on social media and all your other online endeavors.
I'm very easy to find on social media. I only have Instagram. So I'm at PatFoxArt on Instagram. I have a Twitter under the same name, but I have yet to post a single tweet on it. And to be frank, I'm shit at social media. But yes, at PatFoxArt on Instagram. Otherwise, I have a website, is patfox.com.au.
Oh, Pat Fox, art director to the stars.
Whoa. I think that's probably copyright somewhere along the lines.
Thanks for joining us on the Radults podcast.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
We've decided you are a certified Radult.
Woo! And after this episode, where we're going, we don't need no roads.
We don't.
So thank you very much. Definitely certified as a Radult.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having me, guys.
And that brings to an end another episode of the Radults podcast. We hope you've enjoyed your time with us today, and that you've left the episode feeling even more inspired to turn your own creative dreams into reality. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, and share our content. And go out there and live life a little more Radult. Have a rad day.